Welcome to what's been described as Jim Lambie in conversation, but which for various reasons we're calling Tim and Jim's chit chat. Jim Lambie, as I'm sure you know, has a major installation up at Pacific Place. He's also got 3 works around the art fair, so you can do a Lambie trail. There's a mirror piece at Sadie Cole's, there's a belt piece at Franco Neri, and there's one of the new sunglasses pieces at Modern Institute. Jim's known to audiences in Hong Kong because he had a show here in 2013 with Pearl Lam. But he was born and educated in Glasgow, and that's where his studio is. But he's travelled the world extensively, and some of his formative experiences are outside of Scotland, although a lot of his formative experiences are inside of Scotland. He's nominated for the Turner Prize in 2005, just to pluck something randomly out of his CV, and he also did an extraordinary one of the Zubok pieces on the stairs of the Royal Academy that caused consternation amongst the drunken hordes leaving the annual summer exhibition dinner that year. The public loved it. Jim, I want to just let's begin by talking about the piece in Pacific Place, because it's a singular piece you've made for that space.
Yes.
But its origins are in other works.
Yeah, it's actually to use a musical term, it's a kind of remix, like a mashup of 2 pieces. One piece is called The Strokes, and the other piece was called Shaved Ice. The problem with Shaved Ice, putting that in the way that it was initially shown, is that Shaved Ice spoke about the verticality of a room. And
These are the ladders?
Yes, the ladders went from the floor to the ceiling. And of course, it would have been an impossible task to do that at Pacific Place. So I had to initially they were going to be in separate areas, but we ended up putting it all together. So I had to come up with a way. I really hate the idea of just sitting them in a plinth. But what I did realise about, you never ever see a ladder standing vertical anyway. So it's always leaning against the wall. So what I did was, we don't call it a plinth, we call it an anchor. And we take a cheese wedge off the bottom. What happens is the ladder leans like what it would do naturally against the wall. So that kind of solved that kind of problem for me in a way. And also the way the thing about Pacific Place is the ebb and flow of the people going through the space.
More flow than ebb, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the floor, I thought, worked very well in there because there's so much movement going through it, and it almost kind of sort of moves, rolls, and undulates. And with the ladders having that lean to going on, it almost looks like they're kind of almost floating on top of the floor. So the thing actually looks quite light. For me, it looks quite a light. There's a light touch on that, and that's something I was really happy about. It felt like a new piece of work, which I gave it the umbrella title then of Spiral Scratch.
Which comes from?
The first ever record that was released by a band that wasn't backed by a record company. They released the record themselves, and it was the 3rd punk single ever. So
This is Buzzcocks, we should say.
This is the Buzzcocks, yeah, sorry. It's by the Buzzcocks. And I thought that was quite a nice kind of way to also speak about my origins and what I do. And really what you're looking at with Spiral Scratch as a whole is really basic universal materials, such as ladders, mirror, and sticky tape. That's really it's very basic sort of, as I say, universal materials. And that's where my practice began, just things that were around about me. I didn't have money to go and make stuff in bronze. I didn't have money to go and buy expensive paints and brushes. So I just started using what was around about me. So that would be like my records, it would be, that drawer in the kitchen that everybody stuffs stuff into, where it's like there's a button line in it, and there's a cork, and so it was just stuff that was lying around, stuff in junk shops, and stuff that you find at flea markets, and that's really where my practice or the way that I work began.
Do you still have a studio full of junk?
Yes, I do. I have so much junk, and I have boxes and boxes of buttons and wool and forks and knives and just.
But is it systematic junk? In other words, do you know roughly where everything is?
We have been trying to organise that in the last year, but it wasn't organised at all. I never knew where anything was for the last 20 years. So this year we've actually started to mature a little bit. Yeah.
I'm curious where ideas come from then with you. I mean, do you have an idea and then think, oh, I've got the materials with which to realise that? Or do you spend time rummaging and think, this material generates an idea? Or is it a mixture of the two?
I think ideas come from everywhere. I just keep looking around. There's a piece that you can see at Sadie Cole's actually, which is a metal box piece. And that was really an observational piece. And what happens when they put up gig posters is, so they put a poster up, and then that gig passes, and they put up a poster on top of that, and so on and so forth. And then it rains in Glasgow, and then the sun comes out for 10 minutes, and then it starts to peel, the edges start to peel. So I thought that was really, I took that aesthetic into what you can see at Sadie Cole's gallery, at their booth. I took that aesthetic and turned that into a painting using metal and double-sided painting aluminium, different colours on each side, and bending the name by hand then.
We keep referring, or you keep referring to music, gig posters. There's a performative element of what you do. You were in a band at school and then beyond. I mean, Teenage Fan Club, went on to be Teenage Fan Club. Do you still feel the performative aspect of your background in the effects of what you do? Because one of the things I notice is that you sort of wittingly and unwittingly seem to choreograph people as they walk through the spaces.
I think there's an orchestration going on that I'm really not totally in control of. It's not something that I'm thinking about, but I think that the way the work sort of positions itself and that totally immersive thing that happens, over at Pacific Place in particular, it is kind of like being in a nightclub, I guess, with the music going on, around about you, you're completely immersed in it. So, yeah, there is an orchestration and there's a kind of composition going on, but for me, it's never really directly rooted in music. I've never used sound. I've never used a sound piece.
But you use rhythm intently in your work, don't you?
This is the thing, so it's very much rhythm. It's very visual. But I've never used a sound piece, and it's remarkable because everybody always. Well, most people talk about music when they're looking at the work and talking about the work.
Of course, you have worked, or you set up a poetry club, which I want to come on to later.
Yeah.
But I just wondered, there's quite a strong relationship between music and art. A lot of musicians went to art school, Roxy Music, Brian Ferry, and so on.
Yeah.
You were a musician first, then you went to art school in your mid-20s. What made you decide that you weren't going to become a rock star and you were going to go and train as an artist? Or was there not a blinding moment when that became apparent?
I get really tired of relying on another three people to make a decision. I kind of really... It took too long to do things.
Do you miss the audiences? You get big audiences for your work, but very few artists admit to hanging around their work and engaging with the audiences directly. Or do you surreptitiously watch the way people respond to your work?
No, I mean, I think particularly with this piece, it's quite easy to view it, from like different levels and do that indiscreetly, But nah, I'm not somebody that would be like hanging about going, yeah, I made this, mate. This is mine. I just kind of, I mean, I spend very little time with my work, and it's always great then maybe when you go to a collector's house and you see something that you made 12 years ago and you made it for an exhibition, on the spot. I mean, this is another thing about my practice is that initially I would turn up at the gallery without any materials, and I would go around. Like, a perfect example is that I did a show in Nîmes, which is quite a posh little town in the south of France.
A Roman town, yeah.
Yeah. And there was no junk shops. I went down with no materials. There was no junk shops. There was no real kind of garbage lying around the streets or anything like this. And I was there like for 10 days, and every day the curator would come in, and I'd be like, nothing. Okay, so like 2 days before the opening. And I sat in the room a lot, just kind of meditated on the space and trying to think, what can I do in here, And 2 days before the show opened, I was walking out the room, and the Glasgow walls in the houses are like this thick because of the weather and the cold and the right. But this was a kind of an old villa. And it was just kind of lattice system, with plaster over it. And the walls were only that thick. And the only thing that I had in abundance with me was my duty-free cigarettes. So what I decided to do was drill 20 holes in the wall, go into the other room and get the curator to light the cigarette, and I smoked the cigarette down through the wall. So we had this kind of constellation of cigarette ash and sort of smoke trail going up the wall, and that was I kind of went to every show like that for a long time before the responsibilities got really high, and they are really high, believe me, right now. So, but initially I would turn up and I would just go around about the city and see what I could find, and that would kind of, I mean, I really don't like this word, but it kind of would maybe inspire a piece of work.
And did that begin when you went on a residency after art school in Marseille, or were you already working like that when you were at Glasgow School of Art?
No, I mean, when I was at art school, I was kind of a little bit up my ass with sort of conceptual sort of concerns and, competitiveness, I guess, with the other students. So when I left art school, I thought, I can't do this anymore. It's like really boring, and making art was really boring, and I was overthinking it, and it was. So this was a release for me, I just kind of thought, I'm just going to make things, and I'm going to make things with things that are lying around me, or things that I'm finding in the street, or things that people are throwing away, and it was such a relief, and what I found was that when the stuff that was making seemed to gather more conceptual value for me, as I was going along, rather than trying to sort of shoehorn
or illustrate
an idea into the work. The work was giving me that. The work was answering me, which I thought was a relief and a release also.
So those early pieces, the soul sticks you made in Marseille from thread.
Yeah.
Just take us through the process of how they came about, because there's a kind of religious or shamanistic dimension to those, which didn't come out of nowhere, but or did it?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It was. I had a residency in Marseille for 3 months, and I kind of decided I would go in the summer because I'm Scottish and you want the sunshine. But of course, everybody that was at the studios there and everybody in the program, they all left. So I was basically there on my own. So it's quite a kind of monastic experience, and I didn't have much cash at the time, so I'd spent a lot of time. There's a brilliant African museum there, and so I spent a lot of time going there. And then I decided to, I kind of thought maybe I'll make my own kind of quasi-religious relic from the stuff that's just lying about the street. So I got a bamboo spine, and then I would tape on like the lid off a bottle that I would find in the street, a button, an old glove or something, and that would be the actual the root then, and then I would cover that. I bought really cheap, those little packets of thread that you can get in cheap shops with multicolored threads, and I would just sit and roll the threads around it. These pieces took like maybe 15 hours or more to make, and it was kind of like I kind of felt got like a kind of mantra for me, and I kind of liked that idea. And then the roots that I put on, they were old coat hangers, and then I kind of liked the idea that, as you say, they're kind of almost shamanistic in a way. And I liked the idea that when I was just sitting there rolling for like 15, maybe 3 hours in a spell, just sitting there doing this, I was kind of going to that place where we just don't know, we don't know where the destination is, but you're traveling. And I kind of really loved that about making those pieces. And then we ended up in Psychedelic Soul Stick. So it's a kind of quasi, there it is. So it's kind of quasi, kind of religious relic that isn't really.
There's always a danger of over-determinism amongst critics. I'm just about to do that. But anyone who comes from Glasgow has to have a position on religion. You're either Protestant, Catholic, well, you can be many other religions too, or you take an anti-religious position because it's such a contested arena. I mean, in many cities, but particularly in Glasgow. I'm guessing as a Celtic fan now, you're Catholic, but does religion brought up?
Yeah.
But does religion was religion something that in your early life you wanted to escape from? Is it something you've returned to, or does that kind of conventional religion have absolutely no relationship to what you do now?
That's an interesting question. I think if there's any Catholics in the room, you can't shake it because it's kind of indoctrinated in you. So it's kind of always there, sort of sitting on your shoulder. But it's nothing that I really think about much.
Again, I don't mean this glibly, but is art a surrogate religion? I mean, or does it play with some of the similar areas for you? Requiring a leap of faith, suspension of belief, or suspension of disbelief, kind of different rituals. I mean, this is a kind of ritual that we're at here. It's capitalism and art here.
Yeah. It's some place to go for me, really. I guess I mean, I love making art. So it's quite a joyful place for me. And it's something that I think about constantly. I really do think about it 24 hours a day. I'm always looking. I'm always looking at positioning your feet, or sort of a kind of doing it for me a little bit at times when in this interview. And I've always got that sort of glance going on. So I absolutely love doing what I do. And I would hope that would come through in the work.
I think there is a real pleasure principle at stake, and it has something to do with colour as well as psychedelic form. And again, you can't be so reductive and say colour's been unfashionable. Of course it hasn't, but there is a view, and David Batchelor puts this forward in a book called Chromophobia, which is that colour is often, there's a kind of snobbery about colour. I mean, if you look at the way we are here, you and me included, most of us are sort of dressed in black, grey, white. There's a few polychromatic people here, but is that just something that has emerged in your practice, or is there something strategic about the fact that colour is something you decided to embrace because the art world has often pushed it to one side?
It was strategic to begin with, because it's exactly that thing where it was kind of looked down upon by the art world. There's a perfect example of it, and this was one of the first pieces I did for a solo show. And when you get offered your first solo show, you kind of you're kind of excited about it in a way, but you're kind of thinking, right, I'm going to ram the space full of work, and then you kind of think, you draw back and you say, no, I'm going to be really like mysterious. I'm going to do an HB pencil round the whole room or something, something really like limited. And for me, that raised the question for me: how do I fill the space and empty the space at the same time? And the floor seemed to be a vehicle for that. I was making small sculptures held together by tape at the time, so I decided then to start using the tape. I was going to just cover the whole floor in tape, but then I thought I could maybe be a little bit smarter than that and bring out the architectural feature of the room by tracing the room and then working my way in and using colour and rhythm and beat and emotion on top of that, the conceptual values that were underpinning that work. And it was, and that was really, at that moment, it was about sort of sticking two fingers up to the kind of, the kind of black and white brigade that was going on.
You can't not have an emotional response to that work. And your description of it as emptying the room and filling it, I mean, is very apt, because if you describe it to someone, what you've done is put a microscopic, well, almost microscopic, but a tiny layer of something on the
it's
floor
just
of
a
the
skin.
room. So it's just the most minor intervention, but in the colour and in its pattern and in its impact, it utterly dominates the space and the way that one reacts in it.
But when you look around, there's so much space there. There's kind of nothing there, and there's everything there at the same time. And because of the colour, it brings out the emotion in you. So, I mean, for me, it was that was another kind of, I guess it was a breakthrough point for me as well.
There is clearly something historically knowing about your work. I mean, I like the fact that you said that you felt that you were up your own arse as you left art school and you wanted to do something else. But your work is often talked in terms of minimalism or post-minimalism, certainly a post-conceptualism, op art, pop art, and arte povera. Do you plead guilty to all or none of the above?
I plead guilty to all of them, and I'm very aware of art history. I love art. I've always loved looking at it. Reading books about it, looking at pictures, going round art fairs. It's just what I love. It's kind of what I feel, I'm about in a way. I would plead guilty to all of those things, and probably tapping into a lot of that through my own work as well.
The Glasgow, the city, and the School of Art, in a sense, is a separate tradition to the kind of YBA movement in London, and it is obviously the strongest city in Britain outside of London, and some people feel in certain areas it transcends London as an indigenous art centre. Do you still feel connected to a Glasgow scene, or have you and your peers, Nathan Coley, Douglas Gordon, Christine Borland and others, have you all gone your separate ways and there is no connection now?
I like the energy in Glasgow. It's very interesting for me, like the youthful side of it as well, like young artists coming through. The music scene's amazing, and maybe this is where you bring in the poetry. I started my own club.
Yeah, in 2012.
In order to support the young artists and to give them a kind of platform to come and perform, do spoken word events, do poetry readings. Do music, do bands, and do club nights. And my payback for that is that I document everything. I film it all. I record it all. I photograph everything. So that in itself is a kind of sculptural work as an archive. That continually builds now.
So that's that idea that emerged in the late 60s onwards about sculpture in the expanded field, that this becomes, it stems from an art installation, it leads to sculptural form, but you're celebrating performance, poetry, the spoken word, the performed word in and of itself as well.
Yes, exactly, and
Let's have a look at some. By the way,
Yeah, okay. Okay.
could we see the poetry club?
So this is just really a little show reel. And then after it, I'll show you Linda Sharrock, who worked with Pharoah Saunders and Herbie Mann in the 60s and 70s. And she performed at the Poetry Club. And she had a stroke in 2012, and she started re-performing again. So I was very lucky to get her to come and play at the club. So the show reel will be there. You see that. You'll see some of the performances, Patti Smith, John Giorno, etc. What I try to do... could you hold it just for 2 seconds? Yeah. Maybe just go with it. Let's just go with it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So what I try to do is once or twice a year at the Poetry Club, I try to bring somebody of note to play, and then or to do a reading, and then basically that it really encourages the the younger group in Glasgow, and so they set up their own nights, and there's some brilliant nights. You know, Spam is an amazing sort of a spoken word night. But also we have like really amazing sort of LGBT nights as well. So they've really embraced the club, and then bands play as well. So yeah, so I guess we can.
You have a way of empowering the youth. As you did that, a little kid that big with a pair of sunglasses over your shoulder was going just over my shoulder. We should have invited him on. Anyway,
that was one of my gallerists.
Corrupter of youth. Right. Let's just see this.
Downward turn, so some unable to get back up again, the struggle. This is the way the world ends for some, the Hollywood what-ifs and Houdinis, the self-imposed confinement.
Silverberg came to William's house to pick out the clothes for the funeral director to put on William's dead body. The clothes were in a closet in my room, and we picked out the things that would go into William's coffin and grave, accompanying him on his journey in the underworld. His favorite gun, a .38 snub-nose special, fully loaded with 5 shots. William called it the Snub.
We can turn the world around. We can turn the earth's revolution. For the people have the power. The people have the power. The people have the power. The power to dream, to act. The people have the power.
So that's just a sort of little glimpse of, you know, stuff that's went on. If we could maybe play Linda Sharrock now. That was the lady that I started speaking about. This is incredible. I mean, it's only like a 40-second clip. This went on for almost an hour, and it's one of the most powerful performances I've ever seen. She came in a wheelchair, You know, she'd obviously, you know, she'd had a stroke, so yeah, she started to perform again. But here we go. Okay.
It's interesting that Gerald Malanga at the beginning,
Yeah.
and Patti Smith, so the connections back to the factory, to Warhol.
Yeah.
But
And Richard Hell as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also to
the
British-
prototype for punk.
to British punk, but there's a Glasgow spoken word tradition as well, so I suppose it all amalgamates.
Absolutely, yeah.
What made you decide that you were going to set it up? Because there's quite a big structural commitment.
Yeah, it was, and it came very quickly to me. I was looking for an extra space to make work in, and they showed me an old railway arch, which was dilapidated. It hadn't been used for like 50 years, and it was 1.5 feet of muck and water pouring down the walls. But behind the wall of it, there was an arts centre with an area that wasn't being used. It was kind of dilapidated toilets. So I kind of made a negotiation with the guy, and I said, look, I've got this half an idea about doing a spoken word club, because there's nothing like that happening in Glasgow, you know. But I wanted not just spoken, I wanted it to also, it's called the Poetry Club, but in its the broadest sense of that word, you know. So he agreed to that. So we basically knocked through a hole in the wall. That became the bar area, and the archway became the performance space. And so my contribution to that was the smoke machine is like a Magritte Flying Scotsman, and the smoke comes out. The smoke comes out the top of the train. So that's like, yeah.
But there's no temptation for you to perform.
No, not at all. No.
But you DJ, but not.
I've DJ'd there, but I don't really do that now. I've kind of relaxed a bit on doing that. But I did do it at the beginning. I did it quite a lot just to kind of get the place going a little bit. Yeah.
It's interesting because I was in Johannesburg last year, and William Kentridge is doing something similar but different in Mabenang, a downtown area where, and it's called the Festival for the Less Good Idea.
Right.
And he's working with local performers, sound artists, but of course he's also a performer himself, so he does that. And he's quite modest about the impact, but it's clearly had a massive impact on the urban regeneration of a particular area, because it was kind of no-go.
Yeah.
What's the impact? What's the ongoing impact of the Poetry Club?
I think it's probably similar. That whole area now, it's called Finnieston in Glasgow. It's the sort of south-west end, and there's a whole bunch of restaurants opened up at the top of the street, and it's became a real destination now, you know. So I'm very happy that it's contributed to something, you know. I mean, that place was dead, you know, before.
Just bear in mind we have distinguished architects in the audience, but given that you've worked with performance, the spoken word, you've set up a club, you've activated spaces in all sorts of different ways, from the staircase to the Royal Academy to galleries to Pacific Place. Do you have architectural ambitions? I mean, would you like to get more involved in the direct design of interiors or work with architects on buildings?
I do have an opinion that it would be fantastic to get, rather than doing a building and then getting an artist in to basically decorate in a way. Probably the wrong word, but anyway, I'm going to use it. I think like getting artists in at the very beginning and having a good conversation about the possibilities, and I think like that would be something that I would be really interested in. Working with architects in that way on maybe larger projects. Yeah,
I'd like to see that. When you were describing the last show you've just done,
Yeah.
which is in Dusseldorf last week,
yeah,
you took a new body of work that included the sunglasses piece, that one of which is on Toby's, the Modern Institute stand here. But still, even though that show was prepared, you took work there,
yeah.
you still worked in terms of intervention. So is the practice now a mixture of intervention and pre-planning?
Yeah, I mean, because of responsibilities, there is a bit of pre-planning goes on, but I do like to make at least one piece of work while I'm there that I know that comes from being in that place, going around the city, finding stuff. So I do ask them, I do, before I arrive, I say, give me good flea markets to go to, good junk shops. And so I actually ended up making 2 pieces for the Conrad Fisher show.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. The work in Pacific Place looks great. Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.